Imagine there's a disc golf basket about 470 feet away, and imagine there's no wind, it's completely flat. You got that ideal situation where, how do you get the most distance? I think most average MPO players are hoping to get within 30 to around 45 feet. Now, some people can obviously reach this basket. What is the most effective way when throwing a golf shot? Is it going to be a hyzer that, turns over and is super understable disc? Is it gonna be flat and direct at it where maybe the disc is gonna flip up a little bit, but it's definitely gonna fight back at the end? Or is the optimal line going to be a force over with an overstable disc despite there not being much wind? Today, we're gonna find out. So I'm gonna be throwing 3 shots from exactly the same lie with golf distance power. So I'm not gonna be going a full 360 trying to reach it all the way there, because we have to keep in mind I'm still trying to keep it somewhat accurate in a tournament setting for safety purposes. So for my backhand hyzer, I'm throwing this really old Pre-Flight Pro Wraith, which is actually one of my roller discs in my bag. If I throw it on a hyzer, it'll definitely turn over and go right. Will it fight all the way out? We'll have to find out. Then for my straight, we've got a Excalibur. Pretty stable disc. It does turn over just a little bit. And then for my overstable disc, we've got a Champion Ape. So one problem right away is obviously these are not the same disc, but I think for the purposes of this experiment, they're relatively similar in the fact that they have the same glide and somewhat the same fade. Obviously the Ape and the Excalibur have a little bit more fade than the Wraith, but for the purpose of this experiment, I think we picked pretty decent discs because it's actually relatively hard to have 3 of the exact same mold and have 3 completely different flights, unless you have hundreds and hundreds of the same disc. Anyways, let's get right into it. I'm gonna start with the understable, go flat, and then the force over. We'll see how much distance they get, but we're gonna throw around 75 to maybe 80% power. We're not trying to yank it and do a 360. We're just trying to do a controlled golf shot. So if you're in your next tournament, maybe this video will be helpful for you. It was definitely understable. I didn't throw it high enough, but if you were going for a roller, that was actually a sick roller. That might be the farthest one already. Personally, before filming this video, I've always thought the flat and straight at it line is probably the best. Who knows, maybe the force over actually goes the farthest. Not as flat as I wanted. It was kind of a little bit anhyzer, but now we actually have the force over disc, so I'm gonna have to put a lot of anhyzer on this, and let's just see which one ends up being the best. Now, if you're watching this, you're probably thinking right now, of course I'm just gonna throw whatever disc flies the best for me. But put yourself in this situation where 1, you either lose that disc, 2, you're getting used to a new bag, or 3, you don't have that magic disc that you love to throw on max distance where it's gonna turn over just the right amount and it's still gonna come back, right? It's not gonna be super understable, not super overstable. Everyone wants that disc in their bag, but it does take a long time to be able to trust a disc like that. Also have it beat in correctly, so on and so forth. So I feel like it's going to be interesting to see on normal conditions. The grass is not super cut, but it's cut enough. And we'll see what kind of shot actually gets the most distance just with a normal golf shot. All right, coming in last place is the understable disc. Now, to be honest, I probably threw this a little bit poorly, but to add on to that, the grass is pretty thick. It's not super cut. I think maybe if this was really finely cut grass, this may have been the winner because that angle was awesome. But anyways, let's see the other discs. Coming up on the last 2, I'm actually surprised where it's pretty much a dead tie. The disc that had the turnover, a little bit of anhyzer, but was definitely like coming out of it, was actually the exact same as a forced turnover with a very overstable disc. All right guys, this time we're gonna throw them sidearm, and I'm gonna go in the same order from understable to a little bit more stable to the most overstable. And this time I'm gonna try to get a full flight. We actually have less wind, but I went to this side of the field, so even if we had the wind coming, it'd be the exact same wind as if we were throwing backhand anhydrous. If I'm throwing that disc, it's typically gonna be a roller, so that felt a little bit off for me. But anyways, let's definitely compare the more stable disc to the most stable. So this one's gonna be more flat. All right, pretty decent. It wasn't flying for very long. Now we have the most stable, and I'm just gonna crank this over on anhyzer and, you know, see if it gives us extra flight. I'm not throwing super hard. Like I said, this is more golf shot. You know, I'm not completely warmed up in the arm. I'm not throwing as hard as I can, but I think it is interesting to see, you know, which disc is just gonna give you more distance without even trying. So, anhyzer this time. All right, let's go walk them off. All right, so we just got to the understable disc. It lost again. And I do have some words about the overly understable disc for max distance after we see where these next two are. But now coming up to the middle of the pack, the middle stability is, you know, it's good, but the overstable one is actually the farthest, which is so weird because I would almost never throw a shot like this. This just went probably about 30 to 40 feet farther. So I would have actually got into that alleged hole out there a lot easier with the most overstable disc. For the overly understable disc, so this disc turned into a roller on my very first shot. I will say there's definitely a use for this when it comes to max distance. If you need to air something out and get a big turn, this is going to be your best bet, obviously. Or if you're gonna throw a roller in very finely cut grass, this disc is probably gonna be the best for you. And on top of that, I will say there's kind of an element we left out, which is going to be the shape. So if you do need to end up in some sort of gap, the overly understable disc is gonna be a bit more reliable since you can throw it kind of way out there and you know it's gonna go right. You don't have to necessarily pipe it on a straight line the whole time. You can kind of let the disc work on its own. So I definitely give that a plus, even though this happened to lose both rounds today. Now on to the more stable, straight disc that you would throw flat. You don't expect it to really roll over on you, but it's gonna go relatively straight, and then at the very end, it's gonna get some fade. I think this one is probably gonna be the best for control and overall golf ability, if you wanna call it that. It's not gonna be the greatest for shot shaping because you're only gonna have that one shape that you really rely on, which is gonna be dead straight with a little bit of stability. You don't really feel comfortable flexing on it or throwing a spike hyzer that's gonna flip up to flat. But I will say for general control and some decently good distance, the more stable straight disc is probably gonna be best for you if you just need to end up in some sort of general area. Now let's talk about the surprising thing, which is forcing over a super overstable disc. Honestly, I didn't think this would go the farthest. I thought one of those other two would definitely go farther each time. Now, if the grass was super cut, maybe that very first backhand throw was actually gonna be the farthest because it had a perfect angle on it. But for the sidearm, I was actually kind of blown away. I didn't even really try very hard. I just put this disc on some anhyzer and it just fought out and was gliding much farther than I thought it was gonna glide. So if you're looking for a really easy distance, at least for sidearm, just pick up an overstable disc and just throw it on anhyzer. I honestly did not expect this. Now, then again, I'm not throwing as hard as I can, or maybe I would if I was warmed up and on the golf course. So maybe we'll have to revisit this. If you guys want, comment down below and let me know. But, you know, not really trying too hard. This one about like 40 to maybe even 50 feet farther than my like flat, you know, golf shot, which was actually pretty surprising to me. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.